Of new inflation figures and the cost of living coalition, there's been calls made on the public to take to the streets of Galway to protest next Saturday the 18th of June, and the Galway protest will take place in Eyre Square at 2 o'clock on Saturday, and the speakers will include representation from trade unions, community action groups, tenants union, People Before Profit, the Socialist Party, Sinn Féin, and many others. Adrian Curran joins me on the line now, and it really is, Adrian, just sending a clear message to the government that enough is enough. Is that the case?
Yeah, so the Cost of Living Coalition, as part of a day of actions across the country, is organising a protest in Galway, 2 p.m. on Saturday in Eyre Square. Basically, it's a campaign that's come together between trade unions, retired workers groups, student groups, single parents organisations, disability rights campaigners, the Rural Ireland organisation, and then also People Before Profit, Sinn Féin, the Socialist Party, and independent TDs. And basically we're placing some demands on the government of things that they can do that are within their powers to address the cost of living crisis that everyone is feeling at the moment.
So is this where people have just had enough? Enough is enough government at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably everyone listening basically will be feeling the pinch. Prices are up across the board. You know, increasingly people are being faced with a choice of heating or eating. And then the other side of it then is that inflation isn't just this act of God that just happens, and that's what the government like to pretend, that there's nothing that they can do, and this is just a kind of a natural phenomenon. Like, at the same time that people are being faced with these huge increases, energy companies, for example, are making record profits. So basically what we're seeing is profiteering, and then ordinary working people are suffering because of it.
So why do we have to take to the streets of Galway to get the government into action? Why do you think are they just not doing it now? Because everybody's feeling the pinch.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I would much prefer if the government would take action in people's interests without us having to organise these things. But really, I guess they seem to defer to the big corporations and, you know, whether it's vulture landlords or energy companies or whatever, they seem to defer to them far too often. So we basically, there are a lot of things you could demand of the government, but there's basically 5 areas that the coalition has distilled down to. I'll just quickly explain the 5 demands. I think it's important for people listening. The first one is around energy costs. The government has the power to set price controls on energy costs. They can set a maximum unit price for electricity and for fuels, etc. I think they absolutely should do this. Other European countries are doing it. Second area then is around public services. People in Ireland are being ripped off, whether it comes to childcare, which is like a second mortgage for people, hospital charges, education, so on. These are essential public services that should be made affordable for people through progressive taxation. There's more than enough wealth in our society to make sure everyone can afford these services. Third one then is around housing, which is obviously hugely important and a huge part of the cost of living crisis. We need a mechanism for rent reductions. The average rent in Galway is about €1,600 now. And then we also need cuts in mortgage interest payments, because Ireland has the highest rates for these in the European Union. And then fourthly, people's incomes need to increase. We need wage increases, we need a living wage, we need pension increases, social welfare payments, and student grants as well. These are all stagnant while people's costs are going up, so people's incomes are down in real terms. And then finally, the last point is we need to address wealth inequality. Like in this society, there's huge wealth at certain parts of society while most people are suffering. So we think there should be a windfall tax on the energy companies, for example, that are making record profits, and redistribute the wealth. And same with the wealth tax, and also a vacant home tax as well.
What about when the current government will come back and say, listen, we're after coming through a pandemic, there's a war ongoing, so everything has gone up. It's not just we're not making any more money on this or taking in any more taxes. How would you respond if that's what they said back to you?
The awful war in Ukraine is a factor in this, but the government repeatedly have used it as, you know, a kind of a get-out, that they say there's nothing they can do because all of this price inflation is because of the war in Ukraine. It's out of our hands. But it was starting to happen before the war ever happened. And the other side of it then is that there are, you know, you can see for yourself that there are corporations making massively increased profits. There's energy company after energy company recording their all-time record profit at the moment, while people are suffering. So I think the war and the sort of general climate in the world, coming out of COVID and everything, is sort of being used as an excuse by a lot of people, when really what we're seeing in a lot of cases is profiteering by big corporations.
Adrian, can I ask you then, do you believe then it's a them and us situation, those that can make a lot of money and those that are left on the lower level struggling to survive?
I mean, that's basically what we're seeing, yeah. And I think when it comes down to the situation we're seeing a lot of the time now, when people are struggling to heat their homes or to feed themselves and their families and that kind of thing, it's very stark. And I think people are really seeing it at the moment that it is kind of a class war issue, really, like that there are these people making these obscene profits while other people are really, really suffering. The majority of people are really suffering,
So can I ask you then, the format then for next Saturday's event, where can people go? Because people have said on this programme before, it's time that we took to the streets of Galway and the capital Dublin as well. So what's the format going to be like? Where should they be? At what time should they be there? And what's the process going to be?
Yeah, so it'll be kicking off around 2 p.m. In Eyre Square. There'll be speakers. There'll be myself speaking on behalf of People Before Profit. There'll be trade union speakers. There'll be a speaker from CATU, the Tenants Union, and also from Sinn Féin and the Socialist Party, and possibly others. There'll be a rally there, and then I just give a quick shout out as well. The big national action will be marching on the Dáil in Dublin on Saturday, and then the regional protests around the country are ourselves in Galway, Limerick, Cork, Belfast, Sligo, possibly others as well. So it's really the regional protests might not be huge, but this is the start of a genuine coalition that's come together. And I think that the big national march in Dublin, I think, will be quite big.
But again, out of the Galway march, can I ask you, what would you like? I mean, does it start and finish in Eyre Square, or are you walking to the Spanish Arch, or is it all just based in Eyre Square?
I think the plan is that we're going to march through town to Spanish Arch, yeah.
Okay, in an orderly fashion. And that's what you want from people that will be doing.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's totally a peaceful demonstration of people's frustrations, but absolutely peaceful, yes.
I do believe that the government would be aware of people's frustrations, and it's been boiling and for quite a few months at this stage. So perhaps those government TDs and ministers might just listen, but what they can do, and do we have the funds to do it, Adrian? I don't know. Do you?
I mean, I would say we do. I mean, they're given a new bailout to property developers, where they're going to pay 70% of their inflation-related costs and this kind of thing. They always find the money when they want to, and we saw that over COVID as well. This idea that the money isn't there has kind of been exposed now as not true. There's massive wealth in the society, huge, but it's just not distributed evenly or fairly.
So the bottom line is you want everyone to be treated the same and fairly. Adrian, thank you indeed for joining us today on the programme. And again, further details can be had from what website, can I ask you, Adrian Curran?
The costoflivingcoalition.ie, I think. If people Google Cost of Living Coalition, they'll definitely find it.
Adrian Curran, thank you for joining us this morning. A very good morning to you.